Well, he wants to call us out on a straight up street race.
Yeah.
So that's the next project. What do you think about that?
That's a pretty heavy project. To quote Stevie Nicks, I think I have to go my own way.
Something shocking happened to Aaron Kaufman, and fans never saw it coming. He was the heart of Fast and Loud, turning ordinary cars into jaw-dropping machines with his incredible skills. People admired him, trusted him, and saw him as the backbone of Gas Monkey Garage. But why did he suddenly disappear without warning? No farewell, no explanation, just gone. Tune in as we uncover the actual truth that the FBI doesn't want you to know about. When a star mechanic walks away. At first, it seemed like just another cast change, something TV shows go through all the time. But Aaron's departure hit differently. He wasn't just a side character or a mechanic in the background, he was the backbone of the show. People tuned in not just for the cars, but for him. And yet, when he left, there were no big explanations. Richard Rawlings, the face of the show, barely addressed it, and that made things even more suspicious. Fans started digging, and what they found wasn't pretty. Before we dive into this, it's clear that Aaron's departure was not as simple as it seemed, and what really happened behind the scenes will leave you stunned. One theory floated around: creative differences. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot in TV, usually when something messy is happening behind the scenes. He had always been about craftsmanship, about the art of rebuilding cars, but Fast and Loud, it was becoming more about the drama, the brand, and the flashy deals. The tension had been brewing for a while. He didn't want to slap together quick builds for the sake of entertainment. He wanted quality, and when quality clashed with TV deadlines, something had to give. Then there's the question of money. Nobody likes to talk about it, but money is usually at the root of major breakups like this. Richard Rawlings was the business guy, the one cashing in on the success of Gas Monkey Garage. But what about his right-hand man? His talent was making the show work, yet was he getting his fair share? Some fans speculated that he wasn't. Maybe he was tired of being the engine behind someone else's paycheck. Maybe he wanted control over his own projects. When the numbers don't add up, even the best partnerships fall apart. And let's not forget the pressure. Being on a reality show isn't just about doing your job, it's about constantly being watched. Every move, every mistake, every moment of stress gets filmed and dissected by fans. For someone who actually cared about his work, that kind of environment could become exhausting. The rush to finish builds, the constant demand for bigger and crazier projects, the need to keep audiences entertained. It was all piling up. Was he done being under the microscope? Maybe he just wanted to go back to doing what he loved without the cameras in his face. Then there's the darker side of reality TV. We've seen it before. People get chewed up and spit out by the industry. Cast members leave, rumors start, and suddenly, things don't look as perfect as they seemed on screen. Fast and Loud had its fair share of departures before him. Tom Smith and Jordan Butler, two beloved mechanics, also left without much explanation. When that happened, fans were sad, but it wasn't the same level of shock. With him, it was different. His departure shook the foundation of the show. And when you start connecting the dots, you have to wonder, was there something going on behind the scenes that fans weren't supposed to see? After leaving, Aaron didn't just disappear, he built something new. He started ArcLight Fabrication, his own custom car shop. That move said a lot. He wasn't done with cars, he was just done with Fast and Loud. That alone speaks volumes. He wanted to work on his own terms, build what he wanted, how he wanted, without having to answer to a TV schedule or network executives. And guess what? Fans followed him. People respected that he walked away from fame to stay true to himself. That kind of decision isn't easy, but it's telling. But was that really the whole story? There are always whispers. Some say things got ugly behind the scenes, that the friendly partnership between him and Richard wasn't as smooth as it seemed. Some believe there was a fallout, something big enough to make him walk away from a show that was making him a household name. And the fact that Richard never really addressed it in detail, that only added fuel to the fire. What's clear is that Fast and Loud was never the same after he left. The show went on, but something was missing. The dynamic, the balance, the passion he brought. It was gone. Sure, Richard kept the show rolling, but the energy was different. Fans noticed, and they never stopped asking what really happened. Aaron wasn't the only one who left. Others were pushed out too, and their stories turned everything upside down. The departure that changed everything. His exit from Fast and Loud wasn't just another reality TV shakeup. It was a sign of deeper problems, of creative struggles, business tensions, and maybe even personal conflicts. And when you start looking at the pattern, it's hard to ignore. Talented people don't just walk away from success unless something is seriously wrong. So what was it? Was it about money, control, burnout, or something even bigger that never made it to the surface? What's undeniable is that he made the right move for himself. He walked away before he became just another reality TV casualty. He built something real, something that wasn't controlled by producers or ratings. And while Fast and Loud kept going for a while, it never quite felt the same. Maybe that's the real takeaway. Some people chase fame while others choose freedom. And him? He chose freedom. The truth behind what happened to Tom and Jordan isn't just some simple workplace drama, it's a full-blown shakeup that changed the very core of Fast and Loud. The show might still be running, but let's be real. It's missing that special energy these two brought to the table. Fans are left wondering if the show will ever feel the same again, or if it's just going to keep swapping out faces, hoping no one notices the difference. But let's not pretend things ended on good terms. What really went down behind those garage doors wasn't just some casual decision to part ways, it was a breaking point that exposed how fragile things had become. Tom finally sat down with TMZ when he felt it was the right time, and people expected the usual vague response. Maybe he left for a new project, maybe he just needed a change. That's what people whispered about, but Tom was sitting on a much bigger revelation. Turns out he and Jordan didn't walk away. They were pushed. Fired, straight up cut loose by Richard Rawlings himself. And why? Over something that, at first glance, seemed laughably minor. But minor things have a way of revealing much bigger cracks beneath the surface. Rawlings has a thing for his cars, especially his Rolls-Royce. Not just any kind of love, this was next-level obsession. Tom and Jordan, like most people, assumed it was the kind of attachment rich guys have when they buy something flashy. A big deal at first, then forgotten when the next shiny thing comes along. That assumption? Huge mistake. One day a visitor came to the garage, a man dealing with fibrosis, just looking for a few photos. He was welcomed in, allowed to look around, take pictures, soak in the world of Gas Monkey Garage. Then came the request, a simple photo next to Rawlings' beloved Rolls-Royce. Nothing wild, nothing reckless, just a guy posing beside a parked car. Tom gave the green light without a second thought, and that single decision blew everything up. When Rawlings saw the photo, he didn't just raise an eyebrow, he exploded. Furious wasn't even the word. Swearing, yelling, completely losing it over what seemed like an innocent moment. But this wasn't about the car, it was about control. Tom had made a call, and in Rawlings' eyes, it wasn't his to make. In most workplaces, when the boss throws a fit, employees bite their tongues and let it pass. Tom? He wasn't about to do that. He fired back, refusing to be treated like just another gear in the machine. Jordan stood by him, and that was enough for Rawlings to drop the hammer. Fired. Both of them, just like that. The news spread fast and speculation ran wild. Some thought Tom and Jordan had left on their own terms to start Misfit Garage, a rival show with its own brand of chaos. But the truth? Misfit Garage wasn't the plan, it was the backup, a way to keep doing what they loved after being shoved out of their old world. And at first it worked. The show found its audience, proved that there was life beyond Gas Monkey Garage. But reality is brutal. And in business, staying on top is a different game entirely. The show hit bumps, faced challenges, and soon, the same people who had rooted for its success started questioning if it could last. Tom and Jordan didn't leave by choice, but Aaron walked away on his own, and the real reason might surprise you. The truth behind the Fast and Loud shakeup. And then there's Aaron Kaufman. His exit was a different kind of shock, one that no one saw coming. If Rawlings firing Tom and Jordan was a power move, losing his top builder felt like a loss the show couldn't afford. He wasn't just another mechanic, he was the mechanic, the mastermind behind some of Fast and Loud's most insane builds. His friendship with Rawlings made it seem impossible that he'd ever leave, and yet he did. Not in a heated moment, not in a fight, but in a quiet, decisive move that left fans stunned. Why would someone who had everything, fame, recognition, a key role in one of TV's most successful car shows, just walk away? Unlike Tom and Jordan, who had their reasons forced into the open, he kept his close to the chest. No public meltdown, no dramatic tell-all, just a firm decision to step away. But for someone so deeply tied to the show's success, a move like that doesn't happen without serious reasons. The more people thought about it, the more the questions piled up. Was it creative frustration? A clash behind the scenes that no one knew about? Or was it something else, something even bigger that he chose to keep to himself? One thing is certain, the show never recovered from these losses. New faces came in, the builds kept rolling, but the spark was gone. Tom, Jordan, and the one who walked away weren't just employees, they were the heart of Fast and Loud. And without them, fans could feel the difference. Maybe Rawlings thought the show would survive just fine, that people would tune in no matter who was on screen. But there's a limit to how much you can replace before the magic fades for good. And for many longtime fans, that limit had already been reached. As for Tom and Jordan, they took matters into their own hands. They didn't just disappear after getting fired, they built something of their own. Fired Up Garage became their battleground, a direct challenge to Gas Monkey Garage. But here's the kicker. Rawlings himself had a stake in their new venture. Even if they found success, even if they somehow managed to outshine Fast and Loud, Rawlings would still profit from it. It's the kind of ironic twist that makes you wonder if anyone ever truly leaves the game, or if they just find new ways to play it. Aaron Kaufman didn't just wake up one day and decide to walk away from Fast and Loud. No, this was a slow burn, years in the making, a frustration that built up with every car he was forced to rush through. The show had a formula, fast, simple builds that looked good on camera, but didn't always scratch that itch for real craftsmanship. Sure, it worked for TV, kept the network happy, and brought in viewers who wanted instant results. But for someone who thrived on the challenge of complex builds, it was starting to feel more like an assembly line than a dream job. This wasn't what he had in mind when he first met Richard Rawlings. Back then, he was just another mechanic in Dallas, someone with raw talent but no big stage to showcase it. Rawlings saw that spark in him, and together they built something huge. But as the show took off, their visions started to drift apart. One wanted more freedom to experiment, to push the limits of what could be done with metal and horsepower. The other wanted to keep things fast, flashy, and marketable. Two opposing forces bound to clash eventually. The more he tried to adapt, the more he felt like he was losing himself. This wasn't about ego or fame, he simply wasn't happy. The projects didn't excite him anymore, and the deadlines made it impossible to do the kind of work he really wanted to. He stayed longer than he should have, trying to make it work, trying not to let down the people he had worked with for so long. But deep down, he knew the only way forward was to leave. Aaron leaving changed everything, but what he did next showed he was just getting started. The choice that changed his life forever. The decision to go wasn't a hasty one. He planned his exit carefully, knowing full well that fans would have questions and that the show would have to figure out how to move on without him. Richard saw it coming. He knew his lead mechanic was unhappy, knew he wanted to do things that simply didn't fit the show's format. And when the day finally came, it marked the end of an era. For the viewers, it was a huge shift. He wasn't just another guy on the show, he was the heart of it for many fans. His skill, his calm demeanor, his ability to turn an old hunk of metal into something spectacular. All of that made him irreplaceable. And while the show moved on, the truth is, nobody could really fill his shoes. But let's be honest, this wasn't just about creative differences. There were personal issues too, the kind that don't get aired out in public but leave a lasting impact. He never spilled all the details, but he made it clear that there were deep rifts between him and Richard. These weren't small arguments over car parts or episode ideas. They were real conflicts, the kind that made it impossible to keep working together. If things were tense between them, you can bet they were tense with other members of the team as well. And then there was the question of what came next. Aaron wasn't the type to just sit around reminiscing about the past. He had bigger plans, a vision for something entirely his own. After leaving Fast and Loud, he set out to create a new space where he could build the kinds of vehicles he had always wanted to. This wasn't going to be some small-time operation. He was going all in, gathering a team of the best mechanics he could find, people who shared his passion for craftsmanship. He looked all over the country for the right talent, bringing together a group of highly skilled builders who weren't afraid of pushing the limits. This wasn't just about making cars look cool for a TV audience. This was about innovation, precision, and creating something that truly stood out. Aaron had a clear vision, and he wasn't going to let anything get in the way of making it happen. His new venture, Arkady Fabrication, quickly gained attention. Investors saw the potential, and surprisingly, even Richard Rawlings was rumored to have put money into it. That might sound strange given their past, but Richard had a knack for spotting good business opportunities, even when they involved former employees. Whether or not they left on good terms, he knew talent when he saw it. And Aaron, he wasn't looking back. He had built something new, something that finally gave him the freedom he had been craving for years. Instead of trying to cover every type of vehicle, Aaron made a strategic choice to focus on a specific niche. He knew that spreading himself too thin could slow down progress, so he honed in on what he loved most: classic Ford models from the late 1950s to the late 70s. These were the cars that excited him, the ones he had been passionate about since he was young. Sticking to this niche wasn't just a business decision, it was a statement. He wasn't going to compromise anymore. He was going to build exactly what he wanted on his terms. Aaron's departure from Fast and Loud wasn't just about walking away from a TV show, it was about reclaiming his passion, refusing to settle, and proving that real craftsmanship still mattered in an industry that often prioritized speed over quality. He took a huge risk, leaving behind a steady gig and stepping into the unknown. But for Aaron, the choice was clear. He wasn't just building cars, he was building a legacy. And for those who doubted whether he could succeed on his own, well, all they had to do was take one look at the incredible work coming out of Arkady Fabrication. Because Aaron Kaufman didn't just leave Fast and Loud, he built something even better. Did Aaron Kaufman leave Fast and Loud on his own terms, or was there something happening behind the scenes that forced him out? Some believe he walked away for creative freedom, while others suspect deeper conflicts at Gas Monkey Garage. Was it just a career move, or was there a hidden reason no one is talking about? Tell us what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.